Hey there YouTube, Wrestling Optimus here, back with another action figure review. It's TLC, the last pay-per-view of the year, and even though nothing is really going to change on January 1st, at least it will feel like this awful year is behind us. Honestly, the WWE product has been pretty bad lately, and I contemplated not even watching. However, this is my last chance to prove my dominance in predictions. But first, if you're new here, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more pro wrestling and action figure content. Now, we're headed into the Thunderdome! So, for a recap and review, let's take it over to the action figures. The kickoff show includes the obligatory R-Truth segment and an 8-man tag team match involving Otis, Chad Gable, Daniel Bryan, Big E, King Corbin, Shinsuke Nakamura, Cesaro, and Sami Zayn. It's a shame and frankly an embarrassment that WWE has this much incredible talent and wastes them in a throwaway match on the pre-show. Surprisingly, the main show opens with one of two TLC matches, this one for the WWE Championship between Drew McIntyre and AJ Styles. So I immediately knew Miz was cashing in because why else would this be first? There aren't many weapon spots here, which seems to be saved for later in the night. AJ looks more dominant than I anticipated, laying into Drew with a chair before they fight over a ladder. They tease some table spots, but don't use any just yet. As anticipated, once both men are sufficiently beaten up, The Miz and John Morrison run out. Interestingly, Morrison cashes in the Money in the Bank briefcase for The Miz, and apparently it's a triple threat TLC match now. Miz goes for the quick victory, but almost pulls him off the ladder, cradles him in his arms like a baby, and then drops him through a table. Then, the Giant chases Morrison up the ramp for hitting him with a chair, which he no-sells. Drew and AJ fight on top of a ladder. Miz joins them with the second ladder. There's a ton of back and forth with lots of false finishes. Finally, Miz goes to stop AJ when Drew tips over the ladder and nails Miz with a Claymore kick for good measure. McIntyre limps up the ladder and retrieves the belt to retain his WWE Championship. Carmella has a super fancy new entrance and new ring gear to take on Sasha Banks for the Smackdown Women's Championship. At one point in the match, Sasha delivers the Three Amigos and a frog splash in honor of her idol Eddie Guerrero. When Sasha locks in the Banks statement, Carmella's sommelier, Reginald, rescues her, and somehow this isn't a DQ. Either way, Banks takes him out with a Meteora before she catches a super kick from Carmella. Later in the match, Sasha locks in another Banks statement to get the submission victory and retain her title as well. Although I got it wrong in my predictions, this was the right outcome, and Carmella impressed in defeat. That's a good sign for her new character. Asuka is preparing for her match when Billie Kay interrupts. She gives Asuka her resume and a headshot and asks to be her mystery partner tonight. Billie even claims to speak Japanese and shows off her paper plate kabuki mask. Unfortunately, Asuka says the position has already been filled. MVP escorts Shelton Benjamin and an increasingly cocky Cedric Alexander to the ring as they take on the New Day for the Raw Tag Team titles. These guys are all super athletic, and this is exactly the kind of match you'd expect out of them. I especially enjoyed all the subtle character work by Cedric Alexander as he slowly annoys his stablemates with his arrogance. To that end, after Kofi and Shelton battle on the top rope, Benjamin hits a superplex, but Alexander tags himself in and hits a lumbar check to steal away the victory. He does an exaggerated celebration as his teammate looks on conflicted. They just won the titles, but this kid is getting on his nerves. Bobby Lashley joins them at the top of the ramp. In a blatant reference to Tom Cruise's recent on-set tirade, Kayla Braxton released a secret recording of Sami Zayn on her Instagram. So Sami rightfully confronts her and asks if she has any shame for violating his privacy. She doesn't, and of course, now she develops some ethics and refuses to reveal her sources. The Women's Tag Team Champions come out first in order to prolong the reveal of Asuka's mystery partner. Like most people going in, my money was on Charlotte making her return. And we were all correct. Despite their checkered past, the Queen teams up with the Empress for the first time ever. Ric Flair watches on from the back. The primary focus of the match is on Charlotte, and she absolutely dominates once she's in, playing all her greatest hits like the big boot and a moonsault off the top rope. I've never been a huge fan, but it is good to see her back. Asuka takes out Nia with a hip attack, and Charlotte reverses Baszler's attempt at the Kirifuda clutch with natural selection for the win. Your new Women's Tag Team Champions are Charlotte and Asuka 2 belts. Flair also becomes the second ever Women's Grand Slam champion after Bayley. R-Truth and Big E are joking backstage when they're approached by Sami Zayn. He thinks Big E was Kayla's source and leaked the audio. E denies it, so Sami offers him a bit of constructive criticism about his singles run. He takes offense and gets serious as Truth runs away. In a menacing tone, E tells Sami to keep playing and see what happens. The other TLC match between Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens is next. Apparently, unlike the WWE title, the Universal title doesn't get an Ascension ceremony, it's just hoisted up by an official during Roman's entrance. Kevin Owens opts out of an entrance, choosing instead to jump Reigns from behind. He hits cannonballs both in and out of the ring, then follows it up with a frog splash off the apron to the outside, leaving Roman visibly winded. Jey Uso comes running out to make the save, but gets taken out with a chair when Owens uses it to Pillmanize his ankle. He's temporarily helped to the back by officials. KO turns around and gets hit with a drive-by. Roman attacks him with a set of steel steps, then, in fitting with the theme of the pay-per-view, he lays into Owens with ladders and chairs. Throughout the vicious beating, KO keeps valiantly fighting back. At one point, Owens manages to keep Roman down long enough to get up a ladder and reach for the belt, but Jey Uso comes back and stops him. The cousins double team Owens for a bit until he super kicks Jey and stuns Reigns. KO powerbombs Uso through the announce table and tries to climb the ladder, but Reigns slams him into another ladder, then puts him through a table. He crawls back yet again to stop Roman from winning as the tribal chief screams that he's just embarrassing his family. During a fight at the top of the ladder, Reigns resorts to a low blow before choking out Owens with a guillotine. The champ tosses KO's lifeless body to the ground and grabs the belt to win and retain his Universal Championship. Before the main event, Bray Wyatt reads us the Firefly Carol, recapping his feud with Randy Orton. Then, The Fiend makes his iconic entrance, sans Alexa Bliss. It should be noted that commentary clearly established beforehand that you must set your opponent on fire in order to win. Randy comes out in a hoodie and jeans, I'm assuming to make him more flame retardant, but strangely, there's no fire in this Inferno match. So far. After a Sister Abigail, the Fiend raises and lowers his hands just like Kane, and gigantic towers of flames ignite around the Thunderdome. In an impressive visual, they stay lit as the two men continue fighting around the ring. The Fiend hits Randy with a leather strap, then finds a second one with kerosene on the tip. He lights it on fire and tries to hit Orton, but misses. Similarly, he then finds a wooden rocking chair and a can of gasoline behind the timekeeper's area. He douses the chair with gas and sits Randy in it, then lights a trail of gas just like in a movie, but the Viper gets away just as the fire reaches him, with the help of a little creative editing. The Fiend catches Randy in a mandible claw, but Orton manages to turn him around and push him into some flames. The Fiend's back ignites, and he seemingly loses, but there's no bell. He chases Randy back into the ring while still on fire, so the Viper hits him with an RKO. However, that's apparently not enough. He grabs the can of gasoline and pours it over the Fiend before retrieving a box of matches. Randy lights one and drops it on the Fiend and watches as what's clearly a dummy goes up in a ball of flames. Fade to black. Well, that was one hell of a way to end a match, let alone a pay-per-view. It makes sense though. As I said in my predictions video, Randy has lost a lot this year and couldn't really afford to lose again. However, the Fiend is portrayed as unbeatable. The Inferno stipulation was a creative way of protecting him while giving Orton a much-needed victory. I'm also glad it was an actual wrestling match despite being cinematic in nature. Randy needed that, and although this wasn't a clear pinfall or submission, he did dominate the wrestling aspects of the match, and at the end of the day, a win's a win. Overall, that was a really solid pay-per-view. It'll be interesting to see where the Fiend's character goes from here now that he's seemingly been murdered. The rest of the booking made sense with few real surprises. I'm glad both tag titles changed hands, but otherwise not the most newsworthy show. Still, it was decent and leaves plenty of room for new storylines and the rumored hard reset at Royal Rumble. Alright, that'll do it for WWE TLC. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. I'll be back on Thursday with my action figure review of AEW's Holiday Bash, so check back then. In the meantime, if you liked this video, make sure to do all that normal YouTube stuff. Smash the like button, share with any wrestling or action figure fans you may know, subscribe to the channel, and spread the word. You can also talk to me over on Twitter at PSUOptimus, or see all my best figure photography over on Instagram at WrestlingOptimus. If you haven't seen my most recent Dynamite review, you can check that out right here. But until next time, I've been Wrestling Optimus, and I'll catch you later.